That shit bothers me on a regular basis. Like, it's not even just females. Like, it happens with dudes too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and you be like, "What's up, King?" And
yeah,
they get offended with that shit too. And it's like,
yo,
man,
it's
like, why are you getting mad because another brother greeted you with King instead of nigga?
facts.
Like
I had one dude just straight told me, yo, I'm not a king. I don't have slaves. I don't have nobody underneath me. I'm just a regular dude, so don't call me king. I was like,
that's a different way of looking at it, but it's like, damn, your mind is that more trapped.
Your mind is
like,
trapped. Yeah, I was just going to say, your mind is trapped right now. You know, you can't even see how much bigger you are as a person.
But that's kind of like our education.
That's society. That's the way that you were brought to. You know,
because it's like
programmed.
Definitely.
To feel that you were inferior to everyone else.
I don't know about when y'all went to school. When I went to school, it was like, yo, 400 years of slavery, then y'all was free. Mm-hmm. Now y'all are where y'all are. And it's like, that's
it's still strapped.
But meanwhile, there's all this type of white history and everything else that going on. It's like, that don't make no fucking sense.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
We live and learn.
Well, we are back to No Filter Radio. It's your girl Just Blaze, and we got Reelz in the building.
Boom, 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 boom.
You already know. Producer extraordinaire.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna pick your brain. Oh my God, I'm about to hire you too.
Yeah.
My son just switched his name. My son's in college. He's in his second year of college.
Okay.
And he started off doing computer engineering.
Okay.
And then he got bored.
It happens.
And then I encouraged him. I'm like, you don't have to say you're young. You can. Move around.
Absolutely.
You can hold around in college as far as like classes wise.
You can hold around in classes.
Hey,
hold around.
You didn't hear that. No.
I know. Mama don't need to know. Don't tell Mama to close her ears real quick. Listen, I got I get it. I got a 21-year-old daughter, so the opposite.
Oh yeah, so yeah, darling. Let me take you get your nails done.
Girl, don't do your thing. That's funny enough. Like my daughter's actually moved from New York, and she's down south, and she's one of the reasons. Like, yo, I could be down there, and I can chill and kind of live up. COVID did everybody dirty who went to college up here because it was like some people got into college thinking they didn't get that whole experience and got to do college from their bed.
That's horrible.
Given the curse.
Listen, I felt so bad for my son when he was in college. I was like sad for him.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, they look so depressed. Like at that point, I really felt like my son was going. I think all kids.
I think a lot of people went through depression.
Absolutely.
Between COVID was one of those things that either made or break your relationship. Mm-hmm. It even made you or broke your friendships. It made a lot of people stronger. And if I had foresight, I would have chilled before COVID because a lot of decisions I made before COVID, I was thinking I like decisions, and then COVID happened, and it was like,
oh shit, reality struck. Yeah.
And things that I said then can't take back, but you live and you learn. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
Yeah, so he's in his second year of college, and he just switched his major to what is it? Sound engineering.
Okay.
So he wants to try to be like the next Kanye and shit.
Well, in this day and age, you can definitely do it.
But he's doing it. He could do it. He's my son. I've been telling him since he's been younger. He's ridiculously musically inclined. Mm-hmm. Like he just has that thing. He started teaching me how to DJ.
Okay.
About what 3 years ago? About 2 years ago, he started teaching me how to DJ. Mm-hmm. I went and I invested. And I bought myself a controller. I bought myself a SB3.
Okay.
Right, and I'm home fucking with it, whatever, harassing the hell out of him.
What's this button?
What do I do here?
Exactly.
Why isn't this doing it? How do I get that sound that you do? Why don't I have this sound that you have? Like, like a whole bunch of shit. Mm-hmm. And then one night I told my son, I said, yo, jump on that right now. He's like, go. I said, I don't care, figure it out. I said, figure it out. And I tell you, my man he just started mixing.
Right.
And I was like, oh shit. Remember I called you up too? I was like, my son is mixing like if you was training him for fucking months and shit.
Some people got it.
So I always knew he had it. So we were talking about it earlier. I said, I tell him all the time, like, yo, I got a lot of people you can sit down with. And just, soak up a lot of, knowledge and stuff like that.
And that's the thing with this generation with music, it's a forgotten art sometimes because it's not really being taught in school anymore. Right. It's not like you have marching bands in certain aspects sometimes, but it's really getting taken out of school curriculum. That they more pushing for sports, of course, and I mean sports is great, but if you don't learn an instrument, you don't learn yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a whole fact.
It's one of those things to make an inanimate object sing.
Right.
It's like, that's fucking amazing. That's the thing of life. Like, when you can make something that does nothing until you actually blow the life of air into it.
Yeah.
Shit's crazy.
I remember my first music class. Like, the teacher was sick.
Did you ever have the flute?
Actually, I did play the flute.
Okay.
But
We all had the flute.
that wasn't that class.
Yeah.
Alright, so what the teacher did was literally just put all the instruments in the middle of the room. And he just said, yo, just
Grab
walk,
whichever one.
grab whichever one you gravitate to. You know what I'm saying? I'm a drummer. I went straight to the drums.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
But I didn't go for the acoustic drums.
Which ones is that? Like,
The
what's the,
I
that's
didn't go.
like
Yeah. I didn't go for those.
Okay.
I didn't go for those. I went for the tom toms.
Oh, the
No,
oh, the big joints?
the African joints.
Oh,
I went right for those
Don't twist.
automatically.
You're a nut.
You know what I'm saying? No stopping. I went straight for those. And then I did do acoustics after, like a year after that. After that, I went to Tilden. I actually started playing the timpani.
Okay.
The who?
The
The
temple.
timpani. That's
Big
more
ass
orchestra.
drum. The
Oh.
doom,
Yeah.
Ooh, like
Yeah.
it's just in like a
Right. So I started running with those. I've actually touched damn near all the drums as far as training. But that's actually the key to my DJ.
Funny thing about drummers. Drummers and DJs are almost the best producers. It's one of those things because once you know what, the hardest thing to, not really the hardest thing in doing beats, but one of the hardest things to do is get somebody to naturally bob their head to a beat. And in programming beats, sometimes it can get really mechanic, but drummers have this way of knowing how to stay sync in time with even being off time. Because everything in life is not syncopated as so much as some of these beats are. Things are always off. Everything has a swing to it.
Quarter
You know what I mean?
triple beats.
Yeah, so
it's different shit.
it's a lot of
All I know
different
is the foot tap.
See?
No disrespect to the art that you guys are master at. When he was, like I said, when he was teaching me how to DJ, he was like, and then my shit would be all off beat.
And that's from drumming.
Yep. You know that foot tap is actually one way I teach rappers how to count their bars.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because
Wow.
if you can do the two-step, you can count your bars. If you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, that's one bar.
Right.
And a lot of people get into this thing, yo, I just write, son. All right, you know how to count, you know how to write to the beat? Yeah, all right. You know how to count? Yeah. Oh, they put it together.
They
And it's
realize-
like, oh shit, this is that easy.
Right.
Now, funny thing about you when your teacher there, he made you pick the instrument, he made y'all do the round robin. When I went to Roosevelt High School, I went to Roosevelt, and Roosevelt Long Island, we was a little bit poor, we'll say it like that. So we had a teacher who pretty much argued with us, threw instruments at us, and told us what we was gonna play.
Right.
Shout out to Mr. Grip, I love you to death. So the thing about it is this, I've learned that most people who either play, well, I got thrown the trombone, I learned the saxophone. The person who got thrown the saxophone is my boy Jake Bell. Jake Bell he stuck with it. He actually does a lot of work in Atlanta with a band down there, with the Atlanta bands down there, and he also has credits in Beyonce's Homecoming because he did a lot of choreography. One of the things I say is just to say, he got the saxophone, I got the trombone. So I'm a producer, but imagine if I had that saxophone. But it's one of those things like, yo, you never know what life throws you and the choices you get, but just cherish them when you get it. Like, when you get an instrument, pick it up, practice it. Like, it was to the point where I used to practice every day. I kind of regret it now that I'm actually getting back into what I'm playing now. But, I mean, I went from playing trombone, being in a marching band, hanging out in the studio, doing shit like that. My brother used to work for Teddy Riley back in the day, so I was a studio rat. And then from all of that, it was like I kind of gravitated into all this shit. So it's one of those things that you realize you start from something, and it gives you a basis and a pattern in which you need to know.
Exactly.
And you go from there.
So it's safe to say that to become a better producer, or even maybe even a DJ, with respect to you, that tapping in and being one-on-one with an instrument is better for you.
Absolutely. Tap in with an instrument, and also like cliche-ish, but knowledge is power, right? So you go to school. Well, back when I went to school, we had marching band, and I want then all my boys rap. I came up in the era of it was the 80s, it was the 90s, it was Tribe Called Quest, it was Public Enemy, it was everything in between, it was battle rap, but it was one of those things that all my boys rap. So what happened from that was it just made me just go harder about learning this shit, and then it went from rap to everything else. It's just an experience. It's like you have to get a basis. But the other thing about that is you got to go to school. Like if you have this, my thing was I went to 5 towns, you got thrown out of 5 towns, that's a whole nother story. And then I went to this school called IAR that recently closed down about 2 or 3 years ago. IAR was in the city, Institute of Audio Research. That 9 months changed my whole course of my life. Like literally just having that piece of paper from that school and just the connections I made from my school was lifelong connections. Where it put me into places I never think I was gonna be meeting people I never think I was gonna work with.
Right.
And then outside of that, just having that educational background with one of my boys, shout out to my boy Biz Beats, he was doing some air hustling one day with this dude who happened to work for Universal and had a studio on 38th Street. Somehow, some way we got in there that night. Well, the next week I was running the studio for the next 2 years. And the shit was cool, but it also taught me a lot about the industry. What was that room, 4080?
Yeah.
Shady the motherfucker. The ins and outs, yes, all that good shit. And then the other thing about it is, it can tear you if you're not a strong person mentally, it will tear you the fuck down. Because it's just about what can they get out of you for what you want. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a strong person or strong will itself, you can get really rolled over into industry. Yeah, so it's a fun game. It's fun and nice to know.
But you gotta know how to play the game.
Absolutely. And the other thing about it is you just gotta know your networking. Know your networking and know your net worth, and then you're good. Like I'm so cool with being in places and seeing and encounters I met. I'm also good with just making the money I made out of it without worrying about I gotta worry about looking over my shoulder or some dumb shit like that.
Right.
So it's about just making those right connections and moving accordingly.
So you've been in the game for over a decade.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Since you were 18?
I would say definitely since 18. So what happened was right out of high school, me and my boy Al, just call me Al, had this rap group called Dirty Minds. Then we also connected with my other boy back in the days, Rennie Ruger, now known as Jamal Milton, and my other boy Mike Shaddy. So we was all running together, doing shows. They had a group named Kalukas. We was running around, just having a lot of fun. And then at that time, BET had this dude named Unabomber who happened to win one of the battles, who happened to be from Hempstead. Yeah. So somehow, some way, I caught up with his manager. Ended up producing a few joints for his first album, and we ended up getting a little record deal with Def Jam. Like it was a year to kind of turn into album with Def Jam, where me and my boy had it. And we was pretty much set from there. And it was like things happened in life where it was just like we was both on. It was like we was set, but it was different timing. And again, the music business. Like at that time, I also had a daughter that just came into the world, so it was like I gotta kind of worry about this. The boy was going to college too. He had shit he had to worry about too. And then it was what it was. And then moving from that, it was like still staying active, still just doing beats here and there. It's like it's cool to be local. And then things that happen, you gotta be consistent. So like I said, my thing was from that, I went to school, started making connections from school. My boy made the connection from Universal. That put me in the studio where it was like I did a session with Fuchsia and Sierra. I did a few sessions with Mano. I did a few sessions with a lot of people now I think about it. But it was one of those things where it's just like it put me in that place where I can actually get to my goals. And then I realized like, all right, goals versus life, what's more important? At the time I was in a relationship where it was like I had to decide either I could be in the studio and meet these people and make this happen for myself, or my person, the girl I was with at the time, we was going through something where it was like she was living her dream. And it was like tough decision. Is my dream more important than hers? No. But timing is kind of crazy.
Right.
What do? Do you say no to when you get that phone call?
Right.
But fast forward, looking at it back now, it's like you don't regret anything, but it's like it's always the what ifs. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where again, this industry can pull you different ways where you're thinking, you thinking like, I'm doing right for myself, but you don't know what else is gonna be, what else you may be pulling yourself away from, so to speak. So it's fun. It's different.
It's a dog eat dog world.
Absolutely. But it's changed over the course of the decades. Like before, it used to be everybody had to go run to get a record deal. Now it's really you do your network. You get enough people that like you. You don't need a record label other than saying, "Hey, well, put my shit out here. Put my shit out." But all it is a big ass bank with an open-ended check that you're gonna pay like 30-40% interest on that you really didn't even know you was gonna pay.
Yeah.
You don't need it anymore. Create your following, create your network, and go from there. Yeah.
How much say-so do you have on the record?
If I produce it, all. But here's the reality.
Okay, 2 scenarios. I don't mean to cut you off. I come to you.
Okay. So that's.
And then the other way.
So here's the deal. So how most producers work is.
No, I'm on a budget, right? I'm sorry.
That plays in the factor too.
Like,
But most producers work like this. It's like depending on the level of your producer you are. If you're charging for your beats is one thing. If you have records out there, if you have plaques, then it's level switching. But I'm one of them dudes that I believe in supporting your local. You start with your local base and you go from there because you never know who's gonna blow, right?
Yeah.
So a person comes to me, starts off a regular studio time. We're doing studio time for 50 an hour, whatever the case is. They're like, yo, I like that beat you did. Let's do that. I'm gonna do the studio time for them for free for that beat. Why? Because that way they actually get to concentrate on that. We'll work on that, and how we build on the end is boom. When you put the song out, we'll do the split on the song. If it's somebody, that's one way I'm dealing with the artist on an individual level. We have a connection. If it's somebody I really don't know, and we just all right, hey, it's on the internet. All right, well, here's the fee for the beat.
Tax that ass, goddamn.
You know what I mean? And that's the funny thing. Know your worth.
No, yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know their worth, and at the end of the day, when kind of messed everybody up as far as producers online, you can go buy 10 beats for $9. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not. You start to hear a lot of cookie cutter beats. Right. And then you have original people who actually produce their shit and they do something different. It sounds different. A lot of people don't have, when you have producers that have their own sound, those are the people you need to gravitate to.
Yeah.
Because what happens is people get caught up in this, if it's drill right now, every rapper is on a drill beat. It was 2 years ago, it was trap. You know what I mean? So you need to find somebody that's original and have their own sound. That's why I love Reelz so much, because one, it brought boom back. Second thing it brought back was something that sounds different.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, definitely. I like the whole concept of producing. I downloaded the app and I felt like I was Kanye for like an hour. I made like 3 beats. And I hit up my boys and I was like, yo, rap to this. And they was like, I don't think we, I said, do it, goddamn.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing about being a producer. That's the other thing that producers sometimes don't talk about.
I tip my hat, my helmet, I tip everything off to you because it's a very, very tedious job.
And listen, if you have to have boys. Shout out to my day one niggas. Between La, Jamal, Al, Mike, the other Mike,
the third Mike,
Star, between my boy Chris, between Sleep, between all my dudes, what happens is we'll play a beat, we'll play a song, and there's no yes man.
So whoever could go off on it.
No, I mean on a producer tip where Nick, your day ones will let you know this shit's trash.
Oh yeah,
this shit's hot.
As they should.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes you get yes men was like, nah, this shit's hot, and then you go out somewhere and it's like, yo, why is this not? Because your men's led you astray. So it's good to have people that keep you right and actually make you push the envelope. Where it's like, all right, that's good. I know you can do better.
Yeah.
All right, it sounds clear, but yo, you should try to mix like this.
Right.
And it just keeps on pushing the envelope. So when you have people that's around you, that's pushing you, makes you elevate your game up too.
No, definitely. So being that you're considered, I guess I could call you like an OG in the game.
Yeah,
I mean, with your accolades too. I think you're
it's weird because it's like I'm an OG just by being around, but my thing is there's still more work to be done.
It's always work to be done. I tell people, people ask me how long I've been riding, I say 14 years, they're like, oh my God, you're like this. So I'm like, no, I'm still a student.
And the thing about it is, one of my boys put me on the other day, he's like, yo, really, you realize, like, shout out to my boy Artel, because my boy hit me up for a heartfelt conversation. He was like, yo, you realize you really had a studio since you was a kid, bro. Like, when dudes was like, yo, come play video games, he's like, nah, yo, I got a studio and I gotta make beats. And You come over, you see an SP1200, and it's like, yo, what's that? It's like, yeah, I was on it because my brother was on it. So it's one of those things that I've been around it all my life, so I ain't know anything different.
Right.
And
it was natural.
Yeah.
Nature. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it was one of those things that at first I was like, yo, I want the fame and the money. And then you realize it's like, I just want the money and I don't give a fuck about the fame. Right. I want the money and being able to chill, I want the freedom, and then go from there. And then once I got that in my mind, I was like, all right, I want to be able to be in the studio but have my own, start my own studio. Everything else from there is easy. Because once you have your own business, then you realize, I don't need to do shit but run my own business.
Exactly.
And then it works and you go from there. But it's a fun ride. I tell anybody.
It's fun. I like seeing producers in action because, like I said, you're it's like you're about to make the next hottest joint.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And even if it's not the hottest joint, it could be the hottest joint to me.
And see, my thing is,
I just love music, so I just love being able to sit in the studio and just hearing shit get cooked up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And for any producer, I tell them, surround yourself with great producers. Like, if it wasn't for my boy Biz Beats, and that's one of my boys, also went to high school with. It's one of those things where it's like he started after a lot of dudes making beats, but it was just like his hunger. And then after a while, I was like, oh, this motherfucker here. To the point, that's my mentor. Another one of my boys, Go Zella. Like I met him in college when we both at IAR. Another one of my dudes, we're battling in class because at that school was about engineering. So my thing was, I'm the best engineer. Fuck that. Y'all can't. And yeah, just about not. If I didn't win it, he won it in class. Right. So it was one of those things that it's like I took from that. Like, all right, this dude, that's my dude. I gotta stay with him.
Yeah.
And that's my team. Along with my boy Snooze and along my day one. So it's like having people around you that push you, that's into music, that do the same thing as you. Oh, makes things so much fucking easier.
Yeah.
Definitely makes things easier.
Yeah, definitely. What advice do you give to like the young cats like my son?
Okay.
Because me as a mother, I'm mom.
Listen.
I might be the coolest mom in the goddamn universe, but at the end of the day, me preaching to him is like.
If I went back and talked to my 21-year-old self, I would say keep dreaming, keep doing what you're doing, and never stop dreaming. So that it sounds corny as shit, right?
No.
But what happens when you get older, you start getting bills and responsibilities, and then you might have a kid, and it's cool. Cause like I had my kid in lap. I ran the studio out of my house. My daughter would be in my lap while I was running my sessions. And my dudes would attest to this shit. And they would call me back. They bring this shit up to me like, yo, I remember when Steve was like 5, 6 years old. And now she's 21-year-old. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, and it was a difficult time because it was like, life happens where you may be together.
But that's beautiful because I think it makes that's more like authentic, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you did that shit, you stuck to the plan.
Yeah.
You could tell that was really what you wanted to do.
Absolutely. So it was one of those things that from that to now, it's like grind, make sure you keep on going. So what I would tell a young producer definitely is like, keep grinding, keep on going through what you're going to go through. The struggles are going to happen. Keep on going. If you got somebody that supports you, keep them. If they don't support you, fuck them and run.
Word.
Like, yo, the ones that always wins always have somebody that's behind them that supports them 100%, or not even 100%. And then the other thing about that is make sure you clearly define what you want to do. Speak it into existence. A lot of people get caught up in this shit where it's like, I can do it, but they'll procrastinate in their head like, yo, if I do this, speak that shit into existence, write it down, start doing it. Baby steps is everything. Like, even when it comes to like, kind of sideways off topic, like health. I'm big on health these days, right? So I was a dude that, high school I was probably like 190. My daughter was born, I probably went around, by the time she was 10, I probably went up like 290.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't thinking about it, was just happy in the world. And then I realized, like, a doctor's like, yo, yeah, you're pre-diabetic. Oh, word. Oh, I got a stomach now. What the fuck?
Where that came from, right?
Yeah. And it's like, yo, journey.
It's
a journey. Like, my journey with that shit was like, yo, went from that to like, now I'm at like 201, sometimes go around 199.
Congratulations.
Thank
You're
you.
good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, it took,
That's a mental thing.
it's a mental
And
thing.
I tell people all the time, your mind is the most powerful tool in your body.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the reverse. I'm trying to put the weight on.
Yeah, holler right here
See,
too.
if y'all ever want to put the weight on,
Right
it's
here,
real
holla.
simple.
Give me them jewels.
Nah, it's just eat and eat. But y'all eat y'all don't eat enough.
You know, my boy told me, he said I eat and I'm on the go. But I have to eat and stay the fuck still.
Like,
My
eat
food gets stuck to the body.
Eat and go to sleep.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's eat late and go to sleep. You will gain all the weight you want. With y'all can drink soda.
I do.
I lost all my weight because I stopped eating fast food.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you some real shit.
I dropped all that shit.
I've been 117 since
Since the day I was
8th
born.
grade.
He said, I'm struggling.
Since 8th grade.
Let me ask you this question. When y'all was younger, was y'all heavy on McDonald's or not? Like, think about
I was.
Think about this between the ages of probably like, let's say 9 to 13. Was y'all heavy on McDonald's?
Mm-hmm.
Like every day, every other day?
No, not that much, no.
I wasn't
Every
happy on McDonald's until like
My mother cooked, so we always have to eat
I'd
food
say
at home.
anywhere between 13 to about 17.
I blame 80s obesity on McDonald's.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real
It's
And the
true.
only reason why is because the years prior,
Mhm.
I was a at-home kid. I was old, and my grandma's is a real West Indian.
Gotcha.
So I didn't leave the house unless I ate breakfast. I had to be back in the middle of the day,
Mhm.
lunch, and I had to come back.
You have to make sure you have all your
to eat
meals,
dinner.
right?
Make sure.
And that
Mandatory.
is before the lights.
Get made sure. And I had to do my prayers and all that shit.
Good Lord.
That's why I remember earlier you mentioned my manners, right?
Uh-huh.
Now here's the
You
thing.
ain't got none.
My mom's and my pockets are both from St. Vincent. My whole
Okay.
Hey,
family.
what?
Okay.
Hey,
My
what?
mother and my father are both from St. Vincent.
Oh, I think you said something.
My whole
I think you said
family.
Jehovah's.
See,
I was like-
that's my father, St. Vincent and then Trinidad. So,
Oh, so y'all
Yeah.
people's them.
yeah.
My whole family is from St. Vincent, right? But I'm born here.
That bond doesn't sound
That
like
shit
a bond
don't mean
here.
Nothing.
That shit don't mean shit. Okay? I couldn't walk the street and not say good morning, good afternoon, good evening
Without a following with a
to
service
anybody.
somewhere, right?
Anybody, whether I was with them or not with them. I had to, because they always put that fear in me that if one of them said, yeah, I saw your grandson,
He didn't say good
and
morning.
he ain't saying
Oh,
nothing
shit,
to me,
you're gonna ask for
Yeah.
them.
I'm getting fucked up.
Absolutely.
And they didn't listen to the, remember the kids in our generation used to say, no, I'm gonna call ACS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, call them.
Yeah, that didn't work for them.
Fuck you up right on
And
top
my
of them.
grandmother was smart. Beat you in the bottom of your feet.
That will not work now. See,
That shit ain't
They
working.
call
kids
child
now,
abuse
they just, you look at a
They
kid
call-
wrong.
And they up, you getting locked up.
Yo, I just posted a video on my Instagram about Generation X kids. Just our whole generation period. Telling them exactly why we raw the way we raw. Because we got the raw teaching of the baby boomers. And then we still got the sophisticated technology know-it-all from the millennials.
Unfortunate, but
You know what I'm
true.
saying?
Word.
So
For real.
we're a mix of that we got the best of both worlds, I guess you could say.
To a certain degree.
But then in the same note, the guy made a funny ass statement. He said there's way more baby boomers and millennials than there is Generation X.
Probably so.
He said the reason why is because we got rid of the weak
Well, bringing that up real quick, because I hear this a lot. Like, anybody that's pretty much born in the 2000s, as far as the males, like, even from females of that generation, they feel like they're not of the same quality, so to speak, or they feel like they're a little bit more. I'm not gonna say every person is soft. It's not even that, but it's just like it's more, lack of a better word, soft.
Yeah.
Like they're not as equipped to do things as like the kids.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
So
like
we were survivors. That's
yeah,
why.
it's like we played we played football.
No,
in
we
school.
went. Hold on. I'm sorry. We went to school when it was a fucking blizzard.
Oh yeah.
Let's just say that. That's enough. We went to a fucking school during the blizzard.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We went through
Shit.
blizzards, walked through them shits.
Word.
It didn't matter. We actually played outside.
Yo, here's the real shit. We was in school where niggas had ball prints.
Oh word! They be like, please remain in your class. It's okay. It's a black school. They not good.
I said, please remain in your class. I'm God. That's so true.
You say get under your table where I'm looking at. Nah,
My high school simply had fire drills just for fights.
I used to look forward to the fire drill. Crazy.
That's all niggas supposed to fuck. You knew when that shit was happening. It's like,
And
oh,
you see the
somebody about
badass
to
kids
get
that would
hit.
just bounce during the fire drill. Like,
Yeah, it was like either fire drill for fights or smoke breaks. That was really it.
Automatic.
My favorite.
Fucking crazy.
Word.
Yeah, these kids, they got a little bit easier. I give them that. More technology, like they're more tech savvy. They more inclined for it. I get it. But man,
They're off. But no shade on the kids.
nah, no shit on the kids. Never ever ever. Never that.
I just need
We
to
don't
listen.
say fuck them kids.
Mm-mm.
Nah. I just need to listen.
Nah, nope. Can't say fuck those kids.
Nope, can't do that.
Man, listen.
That's a whole nother thing.
With these kids back in school, so I gotta be careful now. Be riding around on my motorcycle, and it's like now I gotta watch out at 2 o'clock at 2:30 because it's extra traffic.
Yeah, that's a
Can't.
I'm bringing it slow.
So how long does it take you to do this one beat? About average.
It can be 5 minutes, 5 hours. It really all depends what kind of beat it is, and it depends on what kind of vibe you in too. Like some things come simple. Like I'm a sample head. Sometimes I like to chop shit up. Some things I might, if it's a blatant sample, like you just want people to know, hey, this is a sample I'm gonna use. Fuck it. Then it's a lot easier. It gives you already have a pattern that you can really follow and figure out how you want to chop and go from there.
Question, since you said you played the trumpet, do you favor the horns when you make beats?
I do favor horns. Like that's why I surround myself by drummers. So I was a brass guy, so my horn sections is patterned like I can do anything with horn sections. My drums is like marching bands because it's like I'm used to that sound.
I can hear it. I can see it.
So it's one of those things where it's like, all right, now I need drummers around me because now I get that. Oh, okay. Let me.
So you want me to tell you what to look at?
What to look at?
Jazz and funk. That's where you get a lot of your good drum lines
Absolutely.
alongside your horns. You feel me? Because other than those genres, I mean, some other ones they use horns.
Absolutely.
But for where, you know what I'm saying, for where you sit at, mainly in your beats, that'd be a good place to look at.
Absolutely.
I'm a jazz drummer by trade,
It's funny, I'm an Art Blakey fan.
right? So
I don't understand shit about what you're talking about. I just hear like Chinese.
okay, so jazz drummers.
No, keep talking. I'm intrigued. Yeah.
Alright, so
I'm intrigued.
the first thing I learned, alright, let me get down to my roots. My father is a drummer.
Okay.
My father could actually play any instrument you put in his hand, but he couldn't read a lick of fucking music
Oh, wow.
Got it.
if you asked him. My stepfather is also a drummer. He's also a producer. He did songs with Shabba Ranks, Maxi Priest, Marshall Montano, Patra, so on and so forth. They both taught. Drums is like the heartbeat of the music.
Absolutely.
It's the leader. I control the whole thing. Whether I want to go fast or slow, that depends on how you play. All the way around. So that's why he said he likes to keep drummers around him because that's that natural tempo. That's what also makes me a good DJ. That's what also makes my step pops a good producer.
Absolutely.
Because that it's always there. My son, everybody tells me, yo, you walk like you always hear music.
Yo, that's funny. That's the funny shit.
I literally do.
I used to get that shit all the time. Like, yo, you got a different bop. I'm like, yo, I do bop to my own beat. I do, like real shit. It's one of those things.
Nah, you got a beat maker. I was like, you got a beat maker in there.
Always been like that.
I have a beat maker.
You do?
I sure do. Never used ever.
She got a machine.
I got a machine.
That's why you never use it. It's one of those machines that machine is a good thing to start out with.
It was given to me. I didn't buy it.
Oh.
It was
she never got it to
okay. You even open it and anything like
that? Yeah, she opened it.
I plugged it in and I saw all the lights go blah, 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 and then that's it. And I was like, oh my god, great. And then I went, ooh, and they said, nope. Sorry, try again.
Yeah, it's one of those things
I was like
that
a fake Kanye real quick.
you gotta know a lot to get a lot out of it, and it's hard to start off.
Listen, I downloaded the program and I was like there for like, I thought I was on dial-up. It was just like taking forever.
It's a lot of sounds.
You know, it was like, oh my god, I'm not done yet?
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's another thing about it.
So, what program do you use?
So, alright, I'm a Kai guy, so I'm an MPC guy. So I use the MPC, well, it's not the 2000, well, I do fuck around with 2000 XL, but I use the MPC X right now.
Okay.
I trigger that. I use that to trigger my machine. I use that to trigger Reason. Sometimes I'll take stuff out of Logic. So I'll take sounds from all these different programs and trigger from the MPC. Like, really love the SP1200. That's what I really grew up in. So I love sampling and chopping on that. So I float around on different shit. And then my shit sound, like, it's funny. Like, I can make beats to sound commercial to sound like everybody else. But the shit that I really fuck with, the shit that sounds different. And that's why, again, you gotta have the right ears around you, because they'll let you know if you're actually getting into something right, or it's like, nah, bro, yeah, a little bit too different. Yeah, and reaching ain't bad, but sometimes you gotta pull it back a little bit to get a little bit further. You know what I mean?
Get a DJ to be around you.
That's absolutely. So, and that's the thing. So all my dudes are either rappers, producers, DJs, poets. It's like we all run the same gambit. We all do the same shit. So it's like we all bounce off each other with that.
That's perfect.
You know what I mean?
That's perfect. You gonna want to what's this?
He said MP3C. He said MPC heads. I got a Doppler 3000, so I don't know what they call them.
Doppler 3000. That sounds like that whatever they are. This is we're coming live from with the Doppler 3000.
Exactly.
It is raining out this motherfucker in New York City. This is Reelz. Oh, so these are tracks that I made, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh shit, I like that.
That's why I said you gotta put him in the position to make him think that he decided this on his own. Now, I'm not putting Fruit Loops down, but as a DJ, it's the same thing with us. Like, you come across a DJ and be like, yeah, I DJ on Serato. And then you'll come across one that say, yeah, I do virtual DJ, and you just look at him like, I'm not saying you're a bad DJ, but yeah, leave that toy shit alone. Not that it's a bad thing, because I learned on virtual DJ. It's just that I transitioned from it. Yeah, and I'm not saying that Fruit Loops is a modern program. Like, I've been on all of them. Right. But I know that you get better stuff from more like Reelz and Logic than from Fruit Loops. I mean, you can get stuff from Fruit Loops still, but I just feel like those are better.
I feel like what it is with programs like Fruit Loops, evolution. Not every program is for everybody, right? So some people get on Fruit Loops, fucking feel that. Other people hop on Ableton. Ableton is like a key code, man. Right. It all depends. It's like your flavor. Whatever's your flavor, that's what it comes down to.
And Ableton been coming at us too.
Yo, you just fucked my head up. You know, you sitting there, you know who you look like just now?
Who?
Yo, that's just crazy. I think you gotta sit down there so I can take a picture. You're giving me Federal Star fucking vibes, yo. God damn.
Back with this again.
Yo, shout out to Honest.
I was about to start dropping some Honest songs and shit. Shut the fuck up.
Shout out to my nigga Fredro.
Word.
Okay. I'm trying to have him on the
So
show.
I'm gonna tell you some real shit.
I'm
gonna tell you some real shit you probably won't even remember. Since I was in junior high, I've been hearing that.
No.
I've been rocking the real low fade with polar sides and
So your
sun.
side profile just now, you were just like
Ever
a
since-
image of him, yo. That shit
Ever
fucked me up
since
just now.
Sunset Park, I've been hearing that shit. And then I ran into him when I used to go to 192 on Murdoch and
Nigga, what's
Farm.
your daddy name?
I mean,
is?
Farm. On Murdoch and 197 right by the park. And I actually said what up to him. He said the same thing. He's like, yo, you look like a little me.
Yeah, you giving me Fredro vibes.
That's real shit. And then,
It was just weird. Like, I'm just looking at you. I'm listening to you talk, but I'm like, yo, your side profile.
yeah,
is
man, I heard that
right
shit
now,
for
yo.
years, bro.
I was like,
I heard that shit for years. Between that and Slim from 112, and then when Jock cut his hair off, I grew mine because I was tired of hearing that shit.
Yo, my thing was when I had no hair, it was Wanye from Boyz II Men. Then I grew my hair and then T-Pain came out. And I'm like, I don't look like that nigga. But for some reason, it's like, yo, T-Pain.
When I had my dreads, Cat Williams all day. And but that's all I used to hear all day. Yo, you look like Cat, son. Damn, son. Had to go stand in the sun, get a little darker.
Things we
I
gotta do.
got Chubby from TLC.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I can see
I
that.
got my glasses on.
I can definitely see that, though.
Yup, definitely.
I can definitely see that, though. That's a
Yo,
fact.
she just put up a video the other day too, and it's like she still looks like the same person
She's
from like
so
20 years
beautiful.
ago.
Word?
Yeah.
That's
I wonder if
hilarious.
Usher kicks himself about that every now and then.
I bet you he do.
Yeah.
I bet you he does.
Now he got like 8 kids and shit.
Always asking me what I got on.
Oh yeah, I was like, this shit right here.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. That's different. Hey, Brandon, what you got on? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. That's
Appreciate it.
So, do you DJ?
Nah, the funny thing is, alright, so what had happened was with this, when I was learning how to DJs, my niggas actually had like the 1200s and shit, so you actually had to be nice with both hands.
Right.
I was never really nice with my left hand. I was always nice with my right hand.
Right.
So, I mean, I know how to cut with my right hand. These days, I probably could DJ and get away with it. But I kind of stay in my lane. I like engineering, producing. That's kind of like the thing. Rap and third. You know what I mean? Like, that's just that.
There's a reason why I asked you that. Because what you said with the equipment that you work with, there's actually a mixer that comes with a 808 sampler in it.
Word.
Makes sense. It's made by Roland.
Okay.
They actually make a couple of different sizes. One with like a full book, so you could actually run your own beats and actually scratch in whatever samples you want as you want.
I actually remember that piece. I'm trying to remember the exact name, but I messed with Roland Heavy. I used to mess with their groove boxes back in the day.
Right.
So and then they actually had the 808 patterns on there too.
Right.
You know,
so that's why I asked you that. Just pretty much because of that beat. Now, the way you had that sample come in there, if you would have scratched it a little bit, it would have been a little quicker.
And what do you think about that? Real shit. I always say I need to get a turntable and include it into my setup just for those purposes. Because like sometimes in programs you can get the effect you want, but you really can't. And then with producing with me, it's like once I make a beat, I try to move on, and that's just the template. So it's like that beat. That was actually one of those 5-minute beats. Now I think about it, because what happened was I was on Instagram, I seen that shit, I started laughing. I was like, I can throw a beat to that. That's exactly 5 minutes later, or 15 minutes later, everything and all that shit. But yeah, that was one of those beats because it was just like a funny ass sample. That little kid just had me cracking the fuck up. Hell yeah.
Speaking of that, how come you ain't holla at TikTok with those same beats, like how you just made that 5-minute beat?
So here's the thing about educational lesson, right? You have to be tech savvy, right? You have to be on these platforms. Myself is just getting into TikTok. I'm late to the game. I'm so late to the game with that. So that's my fault on that. But that's gonna be the next steps, like these little videos, or just even when I'm doing my podcast and shit, music's up and everything like that.
No, what I'm asking is because I know TikTok do like for the people who are making these little videos, like they have music lined up there that you could add to the videos.
Right.
Now, with you producing that beat off of a snippet from that video, now somebody could actually, like if you would have sold it to TikTok, somebody could do that video with that beat.
I think you have a plan. I think I am going
If
to.
you mentioned that's basically a different.
Okay, I got you. Y'all heard it here first.
Just mentioned that's basically.
Definitely.
Yeah,
that's not a bad idea.
That's good.
Listen, wait, hold on, time out. Wait, you saying it's for the Lord. Bring what we live.
Yeah, we'll talk more later about that.
TM, okay?
Yeah.
Compliments of high TM.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll edit that out.
Appreciate that.
Where do you located at?
So I'm in Queens. I'm in Lawton, New York.
Oh, you're my neighbor.
Yeah,
You're
like
my neighbor.
literally, I'm 15 minutes away from
Can
everybody.
I book a studio session with you?
Yes.
I would love for my son to just like
I'm right there,
be
right there.
a sponge and just sit down, and he's a very quiet boy. He's a quiet guy.
Right there, right there.
Oh, right there.
He's real attentive, especially if it's something that he likes, you know.
And
So
see-
I know he'll be like, You know
My
what I mean?
spot is a little boutique spot where you get in there. It's intimate enough where you can sit there and listen and learn. And if you don't want to have a big crowd there, hey, enough room with that crowd.
Yeah, he don't like people like that.
You know what I mean? That's the funny shit, and that's the other thing about running the studio. It is fun to get the different people you get. Some people have to have a whole crowd. Some people just need they self.
Sure.
Some people need to have that ambiance, like it has to be a club,
Right.
they want club songs on the street. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But my spot's really cool where it's like you get to get in there and do what you need to do and make sure you come out of there with a good product.
Yeah, I'm a bucket session with you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come through and just just learn. Now I told him, I said, now that you switch your major, it's good to take advantage of the fact that you're one of those dog freaking people.
Right. And with that
In
being
the
said,
industry, you know what I mean? Like, he has such like a pot of gold right now that he can just like.
And be like, all right, I want to run a studio. Okay, I need
Yeah,
clientele.
yeah,
Bomb.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's
So,
simple.
I want him to get a mentor, be able to have someone that he can like.
And that's another thing, very key. You have to have mentors in the game. Even if it's like, if it's not even in music, just in life in general, have somebody you look up to or you can talk to and be like, yo, because experience is key. Like, sometimes when we're young, when our parents is telling us shit, it's like, the fuck y'all know. Then you become that age. And then you're like, oh, y'all niggas was on some shit.
Listen, at my age right now, I be telling my parents, I be like, I'm sorry I listened to y'all. Now I'm telling my son what y'all was telling me. You know what I mean?
That shit be pissing me off. That shit be pissing me off.
I was telling my pop shit that's what it is.
When I say the same shit,
I was like, I was dead. I was like, I heard you talking for me. You know?
Yep.
But it was a definite pleasure having you.
Anytime.
It was very, very informative for me at least. Because like I said, I respect producers. I respect anybody who's in the music game.
Absolutely.
And who creates. You're a creator, like I highly, you too. Like, you create music. You create a vibe for people to enjoy. That's hard to maintain, especially to do that for hours on end, because you have to read a crowd and you gotta read a crowd.
Reading crowd is the hardest thing.
You know what I'm saying? You can have a fucking Billie Jean looking chick and she likes some goddamn trap music. You know what I'm saying? Like real shit. You know what I'm saying? So you have to, it's a gift. You know what I mean? I highly respect y'all. I'm in the game. I'm not even crawling. I'm like that. You know what I mean? But I respect the game.
Absolutely.
And I'm like I always say, I'm proud of a student. And I love being around people that I can learn from. You know what I'm saying? But this was an absolute pleasure. I feel like I learned a lot today, and what I've learned, I'm gonna pass it on to my son.
Absolutely.
Like because that's what knowledge is about. It's about being able to pass on what you learned.
Knowledge is pointless.
Like I was highly enlightened by it. That's why when you was like, when I said I don't understand it and you were gonna break it down, I said no. Speak how y'all speak because y'all understand what y'all saying.
Right.
I may not understand right now,
but
later on when I'm being taught, I'm gonna be like, wait, I remember that conversation that they were talking about.
Yeah.
Now, okay, that's what they were talking about. All right, bet. It makes sense now. You know what I mean? So you gotta get them to just learn to appreciate little things like that. So thank you so much. Whenever you wanna come back, like please, I'm gonna bring my SB3. I'm like, fresh. What you got, baby? I told him everything he knows. He was a friend. You're from the great right here, baby. The great baby. You know what I mean? Reelz in the building.
Yes,
Appreciate you. No Filter Radio, DJ High Grade.
Yeah.
Just Blaze. We are out of here. Have a good weekend, y'all.
Deuces.
Later.